Thanks, Cory. Thank you so much for joining this morning for UX and Coffee. Today's UX and Coffee with Jen and Cory.
Hey,
Welcome.
everyone.
Welcome. Got my coffee. This is my mug from Amsterdam. Actually, was it Amsterdam or Copenhagen? They have just beautiful things like this, like pottery and coffee mugs. And while I was there, it was like one of my little fun things that I was shopping around for. So here's
Oh,
my
I just keep my vacuum sealed glass. Keep it hot. That's all I care about. No sentimentality about my mug. Yeah,
well, that one's a pretty one too.
yeah. Well, it's nice. It's nice. It's vacuum sealed on the inside or something. So it keeps my coffee hotter. So theoretically, anyway. So except for the
Nice.
top just comes off. So
When I thought about doing this, it wasn't actually to talk about coffee. It was like, bring your coffee. Let's talk about UX first thing in the morning. And then last week, I found myself talking about my mug. And now here we are talking about the mugs. Maybe this is going to end up being UX and coffee
Well, I
mugs.
mean, I do like talking about coffee, and I've tried all sorts of ways. And I'm a French press person. I love my French press and my burr grinder. So yeah, every morning
Nice.
I do my French press and burr grinder and such. So yeah, I
Oh,
always like talking about coffee too. Coffee is always a good topic. So
awesome,
yeah.
awesome. I like different kinds of coffee too. Lately, I have a fantastic espresso machine, but probably like really good espresso people would be appalled that I let it run this long. I just call it a lungo.
Yeah,
I just let it run long. It's kind of like an americano, right? Like they use it's espresso with hot water. Like to me, this is just like it's an americano.
yeah.
But I'm probably not making the best of that machine that makes superb little espressos. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining. It's fun to have you. For those of you who were here last week or who even watched the video replay, we talked about how Cory and I met and our relationship through the years, and we talked about your most recent post, Cory. So it's fun to have you here today to chat about whatever we feel like talking about. But I thought we could talk actually about that post for a minute because you had mentioned in that post that a couple of things. You said, I don't know if these are your exact words, that you were worried or you were concerned, and then
Mhm.
the other that was to me um, vulnerable, which is nice because I feel like it's hard in life. It's hard to be vulnerable for many people, and then especially professionally. And I thought that was really so I don't want to say nice, but it was vulnerable and it was touching, and I think it struck a lot of people. And you had mentioned to me that you were surprised at how much action it was getting, and I wonder if that's a component because people saw the realness of it. It wasn't just like here's what you got to do now, and it also wasn't like, oh my god, what's happening. It was just real. It was your real thoughts about what's taking place. And then the other big thing to me that was striking, which we talked a bit about last time, was that you mentioned this was the first time in your career that you've seen both um, contract work and full time work in parallel feeling a dip.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear more if you don't mind, even sharing a bit about your career path and how long you've been in the field, where you've been, because you've been early on. Obviously, you were in companies, and then you've been on your own for a while. You've been freelancing for a while. So share a bit about that, and then if you could say a bit more about that dip and what you've seen in your experience historically.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so I've been doing it since '94. I mean, this is exactly year 30, although there was some grad school in there as well.
Yeah.
So,
Happy
so
30-year anniversary.
oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I kind of figure it's not quite 30 years if you figure in the grad school, whatever, but more or less, but time wise it is, so that's good. But anyway, yeah, I started in research, at '94. Decided that research was too small a thing. Didn't get any respect. It was not what it is today. Said, oh, time for grad school, time for grad school. Went to grad school, came out, and oh, research is getting a little more salience. I love it anyway, and research is all I wanted to. I mean, it's really all I want to do. For professionally, as a UXer. I mean, obviously this was before UX, but yeah, I've been freelance since 2008, and definitely have seen kind of the ups and downs. As a matter of fact, in 2000, I decided to go freelance in mid 2008. The economy was kind of shaky at the time, but it wasn't, what it became. And fortunately, just when I went freelance and really shortly before we had met, I was like, oh, the things are collapsing, but I fell into that FEMA contract, and which was a great big contract. It lasted, I think all of 6 years. As it was a renew. Um, but really, I didn't really have too much of an issue once the economy crashed, because by then I was locked in, and that was at least the core of my work. But that said, that was the economy. That the economy was crashing, so of course everything was kind of up in the air, and makes sense. Now, look at the stock market goes up, pretty much everything goes up, but both jobs and freelancing and consulting have seemed to go down. I mean, I actually posted after that about industries, and government has actually seemed to be pretty stable industry. I was a little worried, about the looming shutdown, at least at the federal level, and I'm talking about governments, federal and state. But it seems like yesterday that seems to have kind of at least stabilized for the moment. Um, but there are other industries. There's actually, I did another post. People listed the industries that they thought were stable. Um,
Mm.
so it's yeah. So really, it's a little weird. But I've also been looking at my LinkedIn. I've had more time because I've been only 25% billable. But I've looked at my LinkedIn feed, and I've looked at for other posts. I saw one yesterday saying, "Where have the salaries gone? We were
Mm.
getting great salaries, and now I'm looking, and they're not." And I've looked at the jobs. Say, hey, what are the salaries? You can, I mean, particularly if they're in New York, you see the salary ranges, and it's true. I've noticed that they've gone down, or you see the hourly ranges and they've gone down. So I kind of can say, yeah, if you look, you kind of, at least the little sampling I looked at seemed to be true. But I saw another one saying, oh, I see the job losses and I see the job acceptances, and it seems to be like my whole feed is losses and acceptances now. So maybe we're on the other side and going up. So it's just kind of, it's hard to, we're like sitting in the middle of it and trying to like look, from the top and like look at the big picture. It's pretty hard right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it is really interesting to be in the middle of it. And I'm trying to think of like, and this is not my strength. I'm trying to think like, what's the next thing? Like, how do you stay two steps ahead? I love people who have that secret skill. People who are able to invent products before we even know we need those products. For example, we're the researchers. We come in and test those things and make sure they match, users' expectations and users' needs. But like the people who can predict those needs before we even have them, I want to talk to those people. Like, what is their crystal ball? What's going on right now? What's taking place? Because you're right, it's hard when you're in the middle of it. And we have predictions just based on our experiences. And I mean, I guess that's what we have our ideas based on, what our experiences are, and obviously what other people are sharing about their experiences. But otherwise, it is really hard to tell. But I'm seeing the same thing, what you're talking about, as, I don't know, proportionally if it's like 50-50, but certainly as many layoffs that are occurring, as many people are looking for jobs, there appears to be, again, I don't want to say as many, but there are a lot of job postings and people accepting them, which is good, because for a while it was like, there's so many job postings, there's hundreds of people applying, I'm not even getting a call back, whereas now it's like people are getting those jobs. So, there's always a little bit of a lag. It's late February. Oh, happy leap day. It's
Oh,
leap
yes.
day. How fun. But so now it's like we're going into March. Like, this actually makes sense. Having been on the inside at companies like Google and Facebook, it's like January does tend to be a little bit slower. The planning, it's slow at the end of the year where things are wrapping up and people are taking vacations and things like that. They come back at the beginning of the year and it's like kind of a slow ramp up, and the planning continues. And then now is about the time when like the hiring is taking place. And I've seen actually teams I've worked on that let people go. They had shrinkage, that those teams are hiring. And I have a good friend who is in late stage interviews for super senior level roles at Microsoft and Meta and Chewy. So that was very, I was so happy, not just for them, but just happy for our field that there are these jobs that are, out there and they're legit. It's not just these job postings that hundreds of people are applying for and people aren't actually getting the roles. So they're out there. One of the things that I think might happen is, and a number of us have talked about this, there's a bit of an oversaturation of new people. I don't want to say young, because what I really mean by young is like young in their careers. There's a lot of people who have like entered the field while it was hot. A lot of people jumped on, but in my opinion, didn't have the strong training. So it's like, and I talk to people about this all the time. There's one thing to learn how to do research well and learn how to cut corners. What you're sacrificing by cutting corners. And depending on if it's time, if it's budget, if it's, some senior level person who has an opinion. So based on something, right, you need to cut some corners. But there's one thing about learning how to do it the 100%, the excellent way. And then when you're cutting corners, what exactly you're cutting. That's one way of learning. There's another way of like learning the fast way. If you learned how to do it the super quick way and you don't actually know what you're sacrificing, you don't even know you're cutting corners, you just think that's the way it goes. I think those are the people who are going to have trouble when there's fewer roles available, right? Like the people who know how to do the research, know how to cut the corners, the people who persevere, right, through the hard times, the people who think outside the box. I think it's going to fare better for those people than people who are just kind of like scrappy and just, it was like a cool thing to jump in on. And those may be the same people who are like, do I switch careers? It's like, well, what do I do now? The cool thing that I wanted to do is not so hot anymore, but I don't know. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that passion for UX is that soft skill, the passion of it. I mean, just loving the UX work that you do is probably key to professional happiness as a UXer anyway. And for me, I really like I was trying to figure out if there's other freelance work I could do while work was slow, and ultimately I came back to there's nothing I want to fill in the gaps with that I really would enjoy as a freelancer besides except maybe writing little blog posts, which I do anyway, or writing whatever. But I love my UX research, and what I'd say is if for someone who really loves the UX work and does want to persist, it's worth it, and times will get better. And I do think there's a correction in salaries. I think salaries are not, I mean, there were some people that were just baselined anyway. It wasn't crazy, but there were other companies where they were just going like through the roof. As a matter of fact, I just saw something, I think it was OpenAI or something. And it was like, it was well into the 300s, 300,000s range for a mid-level UXer, which struck me as very out of touch, or not out of touch, just out of whack with what a lot of the salaries would be right now. Yeah. But as long as someone's willing to accept perhaps that is the case, and loves the UX work, I think it's going to remain a good profession. And I've seen people saying, "Oh, AI is taking over UX work." I don't think it is any more than anything else. I mean, as a matter of fact, I still argue that AI does best when there's routine to it, when there's patterns. And granted, it can figure out patterns, but UX has less patterns than other professions. So yeah, we're going to go like everybody else eventually, but we're not going to be at the forefront of that. Of AI is going to take over our work right away. So I don't think that's it. And I think we do have a future. Things are going to be bright. There's some like naysaying it's all like things are going downhill. This is it. This is it. Oh, everyone must learn to code, which I no. I mean, sure, if you want to learn to code, but it's not. No, you don't have to learn to code to save your job.
Yeah,
And I'm not. I mean, maybe I could a little bit, but it's not. So
yeah,
so things are going to be bright, going to remain bright. Anyone who wants to and has the passion is key. You could definitely stay in, keep doing what you're doing. And expect some ripples in the next probably month or two. But maybe by summer, things will hopefully be going strong again. Maybe even before summer, maybe by May.
yeah,
So
yeah. I agree. It is it's 8:16, and when I had originally set, this is only the second time I'm doing this, but when I had originally set out to do this, it was supposed to be for 15 minutes. It clearly flies by. Do you have a little time? Do you want to stay on?
yeah,
I've
of
got
course. I'm only 25% billable right now. I got all the time in the world. Yeah.
okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, two things. Salary, totally agree. And I think what may have happened, I need to go and talk to some of my tech friends who are hiring. I think part of what happened with all of those massive layouts is exactly that. It's like a what do you call it? Like rejiggering is the word that comes to mind, but it's like all the salaries are going up here. You have all the layoffs, then you hire again, and you're bringing them in at a lower salary, right? I
Right.
think that is partially what has taken place because as a person who just came out of Google, like yeah, we were paid a lot of money, and I think that is going to change. So I agree with that, and I'll work on getting some information and report back on whether or not that's true. But our field completely took off. And people talk about the pandemic. It was pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we were already. It was like a hot field. It was getting really hot. And then during the pandemic, everybody was online. So like all the big tech companies hired a ton and paid a ton. And now money. I forget who it was. I think it was Jackson Fox at our panel discussion together where he said money is more expensive now. And I've said that now since then because it's like that's an interesting concept when you think about what's going on at a much bigger level, completely outside our field, what's going on with the economy. And it's like money is more expensive. So for all these companies, money is more expensive. So, paying what we were all being paid before, like it's just not feasible. So that's number one, totally agree. Number two, about coding, I also agree. And then I always use housing as an analogy. And I think because I grew up in construction, that's what my parents were in. But it's like if you were a roofer and all of a sudden, for whatever the reason, let's say there's a saturation of people who got skilled in roofing. You don't all of a sudden say, well, now I'm going to start doing tile work. It's like maybe if you like it and you want to expand and you want to do lots of things pertaining to building a house, but otherwise, like if your specialty is roofing, then continue to get better at roofing. Maybe continue to think about the next best thing in roofing, or what will set you apart as a roofer compared to all the other roofers, which is how I think about our field too. Like I don't think people should let's talk about research for a second. I don't think researchers should become designers unless they want to. Right. I don't think researchers should code unless they want to. So, I think that's really important. People ask me that all the time. Like, should I become a unicorn? And for years we've talked about like, no, there are companies who want a unicorn. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term, it's the unicorn is the researcher, the designer, the content strategist, all in one.
And
And
the
it's
coder.
like,
Yeah.
and coder now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if you want to do those things, sure, maybe now is a good time to start learning those things. But if you don't want to do those things, my recommendation is get better at your profession. Even as a researcher, it's like what tools are currently in your tool belt? What methods do you know how to use? What methods can you add? If you're really skilled, there's a lot of qualitative researchers. If you're really skilled at conducting interviews, what about diary studies? Diary studies are hot in our field, especially since Dscout made them so easy digitally. Diary studies have become really hot. Quant, and you don't have to be a quantitative researcher, but getting skilled at conducting surveys, writing survey questions. Like there's a skill to writing survey questions. There's a whole field of survey methodology
Yeah.
that is geared towards learning how, a slight wording change changes the interpretation, which changes the data. So it's like, to me, this is a ripe time to invest in yourself. Somebody was saying recently, this is not a good time to be completing a master's program or, whatever program, but it's a good time to start one. And I agree with that. It's like, while the field is rocky and sorting itself out, now I think is really a good time to invest in yourself and your career. And, again, if you're interested in expanding to design or coding or whatever it is, then great, go for it. But if not, it's, as a researcher, how can you be a stronger researcher? How could you get more experience now as a researcher? Get a coach, get a mentor, and continue to improve your skill set so that when you do get that interview, when you do land that job, you're even stronger. You're not getting stale during this time and kind of down, because then you're not going to bring your best self to an interview either, because you're going to bring this kind of like down self and you're kind of down on the field. Instead, bring like a strong self to that interview where you're like, I just learned this thing and I know how to do this other new thing. And, you present yourself much stronger.
Right. And also, I do want to say as well, when I use to say, I say I'm 25% billable. I'm not 25% working. I'm 25% billable, because, I really believe also that everybody, whether you're looking for a job or looking for freelance work or whatever, needs to be visible in the UX community and perhaps the tech community, and coding community, whatever, in this general space. And that's what I work on, and like posting every day on LinkedIn, just an idea, a concept, and such. Trying to attend the few meetups that seem to exist right now. We created our own 2 meetups, just because. But it's also about visibility. Just being visible, being connected, and that sense of connectedness. I think pre-COVID that was easier. In COVID, we all just went virtual, and that was that. After COVID, what happened? I don't know. But keep working if you're looking for a job. If you're and learning as well, like you said, learning, bettering yourself, and being part of this greater community, which is harder now than it's ever been. Not ever been. Sorry, it's not ever been. It's harder now than it was like 15 years ago. Like that was the last time I think that we didn't have that set. Well, maybe 20 years ago. I mean, we've had this UX community concept, certainly for a really long time. And that is the worst I've ever seen it now, where like all the meetups, globally seem to have gone like that, or at least most of them.
Yeah, really good point. We talked about that. Well, that was partially why we created the 2 panel discussions in DC and in Denver, because we were like, people are hungry to meet in person, but the meetups, the UX orgs have gone dormant. So I'll say this again. I said it in DC, folks are interested in organizing in-person events. People are hungry for it. People want to come out. We did it. Whitney Hess did it in New York City, and she was shocked at the amount of people that came out. If you're interested, if anybody wants help getting that started, Cory and I have done it a ton. We're happy to give you some pointers on how to get it started. It's not that hard. It's literally like, create the event. What do you want to do? What is the event? If you organize a panel discussion, it's super easy because even your speakers don't need to put together like a formal talk or anything like that. Whitney organized a happy hour, where people paid out of pocket. So she wasn't even collecting any money ahead of time. She just literally organized it and posted it, so it's not that hard. It's just doing it, and then people will come out. So, if anybody
right. And as background, when you were in DC, we like actually every month we ran events,
yeah.
For several years, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And back then that was interesting because it was small. There was UXPA DC. It was a small group that met once in a while. And I think back before you and I were super active, it was like meeting for a dinner. I don't remember. It was a small thing. Lisa Battle used to organize it. And, it was a small thing and people met once in a while. And then we were there and through the UXPA DC board, we had monthly meetings. I remember in the beginning they were small, and then they grew and it was this big community. And, there's something really powerful because you meet people the first time, then you meet them again the second time at the next event, then you meet them again the third time. And then it really became like we were all friends, it was like, it was so much fun.
I mean, my favorite was actually like, I mean, every couple months when we did a speed networking event,
Yeah.
and we pulled in the other meetups, and then we got like 130 people, would come out, and then we like have like group, like across groups, we'd have these people. Some would be focused on content, some would be focused on more coding side, some would be focused on UX, and we'd all just integrate with each other, in terms of like creating this community. And I mean, that was awesome.
It was.
And now things like that don't really exist right now to the extent that they did back then. And it's a loss for, I think, for the community, for local, like for more of a micro, community, for specific geographic areas, but it's a loss globally too. It's not one community, it's not one place. It's like across the world where we had these strong UX communities, and in some places we still have somewhat, but it's nowhere I've seen is it like it was pre-COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's such an opportunity. Such an opportunity. I should move back to DC. We'll get it going again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, DC, we've got this, we've got the government UX as a base,
Mhm.
which by the way never had the salaries like zoom up like like in tech, but it's been a stable base, I think, for as long as I've been around. I mean, that's been probably half
Yeah.
my work is federal and state government, and it doesn't pay like the tech, but it's stable.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's been stable for a really long time. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's helped here. And each area has different different industries. Obviously the ones that are more tech based have suffered more, but also still have a greater community sitting there, just waiting for events like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We just have a couple minutes left. You posted about UXPA. We're going to be speaking together. Can you share a bit too? You're also teaching a course at UXPA. UXPA is taking place in June, folks, in Florida, and registration's open. It's currently early bird until March 17th. So good time to pick up a ticket. And if you're a UXPA member, you get a discount, and membership is super cheap too. But yeah, Cory, tell us what you're up to for UXPA.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, obviously AI is a thing right now that everyone's talking about. And I've been doing a lot in terms of my own practice, just basically trying different AI techniques as I do my user research. And I'm not talking about AI as a moderator. I'm not talking about AI as a synthetic user, which I have to say gives me the creeps. But I'm talking about AI basically, saying how can it be used to augment what you do as a user researcher, and talking about a variety of tools, both the Chat GPT, or the Copilot, or the world, as well as some of the more specific UX centric approaches, based on my kind of work with it, and kind of also kind of looking forward, and what we can expect, and why, there was a quote that I loved, which is, AI isn't going to take over our jobs, but a skill, but having AI as a skill, in terms of being able to integrate it and understand it and understand what it can do for UX, and in my case for UX research, is going to be I think a critical thing going forward. So that's the one, and plus what we have together, with Danielle Cooley, with Carol Barnum, as well, talking about what we're doing, which is starting a UX business, becoming a freelancer, what that involves, which I think more people are thinking about now, in terms of, the job market isn't as great. Maybe I should do freelance. Maybe I should, start my little micro business. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. I'm excited about that one too. Well, both of them. AI is obviously super hot, and people want to know, what, is it taking over our job, or what they need to know to use it in research. So I think that's going to be a really, really great course. And then our panel discussion, I'm excited about too. We've done that one now virtually a number of times, and this will be the first time that we're doing it in person. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, just in-person stuff with people, whether it's a conference, a meetup, just last night I met two UX colleagues for dinner. Just just because it's nice to have that in-person stuff. So I mean, no matter what, try to find it. I'd say to everyone listening.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again there, if not sooner.
Yeah.
And folks, if you're interested, that's uxpa.org. Fun fact, I'm a conference co-chair this year. So my co-chair Adrienne and I have some fun things in store for you. So hope to see you there. Reach out if you have any questions. And it's 8:31 over here on the East Coast. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Cory, for joining. This has been such a fun discussion. Thanks for joining. And thanks for showing me StreamYard. This is a cool streaming platform. They didn't pay me to say that, folks. This is the first time I'm using it, but good
Yeah,
job.
no, I've been using it for a while, and I think StreamYard has been great. In terms of like integrating with LinkedIn and being able to kind of stream right to your feed. So
Yeah, awesome.
great.
All
Well,
right.
thanks so much for
Well,
having me here. And
yeah, thank you too. And thanks everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
great. Bye bye.